If you love intense HFY stories where humanity turns fear into strength, hit like and subscribe so you never miss the next battle. Your support helps this channel bring you more powerful sci-fi stories full of emotion, strategy, and unforgettable human moments. The Coalition war room was too bright for a place that had lost so much. White tactical light poured over the central table, over the tired faces of commanders, over the red marks spreading across the moon map of Iliuminous 9. Every red mark was a failed assault. Every black line was a tunnel where Coalition soldiers had gone in and not come back. Commander Thalen Voss stood at the head of the table with both hands locked behind his back, watching the same fortress that had humiliated 3 armies and 2 fleets. Black Vault Anchor did not look large on the map. That was part of the insult. It was a single buried structure under rock, ice, and old mining cities, but it controlled the moon, the supply lanes around it, and the prisoner population beneath it. Marshal Orvek Dral struck the table with one heavy fist. "One more assault," he said. "Full armor, full orbital support. We break the surface and flood the lower levels before they reset." Strategist Lyra Ven turned toward him, eyes sharp with exhaustion. "And kill the prisoners under the military deck," Orvek glared. "If we do nothing, they die anyway." Lyra pointed to the lower layers of the map. "If we attack like that, we guarantee it." Black Vault's civilian collapse system is tied to the fortress pressure grid. If the walls breach wrong, the lower chambers flood with poison gas. That is not theory. We lost 30,000 civilians on Kareth's Hollow because the Razkar used the same design. The room went quiet. Everyone remembered Kareth's Hollow. They remembered because nobody had found enough bodies to bury. Thalen looked at the fortress again. "We have tried siege," Lyra answered. "They wait. We have tried bombardment. They go deeper. We have tried drones. Static fields blind them. We have tried command raids. Too many narrow tunnels. Our assault teams cannot maneuver." Orvek leaned forward. "Then what remains?" Thalen did not answer at once. That was the hardest part of command. Not the orders, not the losses, but the moment everyone looked at you and expected a shape of hope you no longer possessed. "Earth," he said finally. The room shifted. Orvek's mouth twisted. "The humans, yes, they joined the Coalition 9 years ago, and ended 3 border wars in that time." Orvek scoffed. "With tricks." Thalen looked at him. "Then I am ready for tricks." Lyra studied him carefully. "You requested full military assistance." Thalen nodded. "Generals, siege analysts, urban warfare command, prisoner extraction planners, whatever they will send." Orvek folded his arms. "If they send children with knives, I will leave this room." Thalen's voice was flat. "If they send anyone with an answer, you will stay seated and listen." The human transport arrived 6 hours later with no escort and no ceremony. It was smaller than a Coalition gunship, matte gray, practical, and almost rude in how little it tried to impress anyone. Thalen stood in the docking bay with Lyra, Orvek, and 12 officers who had expected a delegation. The airlock opened. 9 humans stepped out. They wore dark field uniforms without decoration, light armor, compact packs, and the calm expressions of people who had already decided the room was not the mission. Their leader was a lean man with close-cut black hair and gray eyes that moved once across every entrance, camera, guard, and shadow before settling on Thalen. "Major Elias Rook," he said. "Earth Special Operations." Thalen waited for more humans to exit. None did. Orvek gave a short, bitter laugh. "Where is the army?" Rook looked at him. "Not coming." The docking bay seemed to lose temperature. Thalen stepped forward. "Major, I requested military assistance for a fortress campaign. You received it. I requested generals. Generals manage battles." Rook adjusted the strap of his pack. "You do not have a battle problem." Orvek's voice sharpened. "We have an enemy fortress holding an entire moon." Rook nodded once. "Exactly. Armies are why it still stands." Lyra was the first to react with something other than offense. "Explain that." Rook looked at the map projected on a nearby wall. "Your assaults make sense if the goal is to occupy the fortress. But Black Vault is built to turn occupation into massacre. You breach hard, civilians die. You move slow, they reset. You send drones, they blind them. You send large troops, the tunnels punish their size. You have been trying to defeat the walls." Thalen held his gaze. "And you will do what? Remove the decisions behind them." One of the human women stepped beside him, Captain Mara Ivan, according to the slate in Thalen's hand. "We need prisoner distribution maps, air cycle timing, guard rotation records, food lift schedules, waste heat diagrams, and maintenance routes from before the Razkar occupation." Orvek stared. "You want plumbing records?" Another human, Lieutenant Owen Vance, answered without humor. "Fortresses breathe before they fight. We prefer entering through the breathing." Sergeant Juno Park, the team medic, added, and we need current civilian condition estimates. If they cannot move when the corridor opens, your victory becomes a morgue. That sentence cut deeper than any insult. Thalen looked from one human to the next. No arrogance, no excitement, no promise of glory, only work. You believe 9 soldiers can take Blackvault Anchor? Rook shook his head. No, Orvek laughed again. Then this is pointless. Rook turned to him. 9 soldiers cannot take it. 9 soldiers can make it possible for your army to take it without killing everyone underneath. The room went still. Lyra whispered, a window. Rook nodded. A narrow one. Thalen felt the first dangerous shape of hope return, and he feared it because hope had killed good officers before. How long do you need? Rook looked at his team. No one spoke, but some silent agreement passed between them. 48 hours to study. 1 night to enter. Orvek muttered, madness. Rook's eyes returned to Blackvault on the map. No, he said. Madness was attacking the same wall 3 times and calling the dead evidence of courage. No one answered that. Not even Orvek. 48 hours changed the way Commander Thalen Voss understood maps. Coalition maps had always shown Blackvault Anchor as a fortress, a hard shape under rock, with walls, gates, weapon nests, artillery chambers, shield ribs, and buried command decks. The humans looked at the same map and treated the fortress like a living organism that ate, breathed, slept, and lied. Major Elias Rook did not begin with enemy numbers. He began with air. Show me the ventilation return cycle. A coalition engineer blinked. You mean atmospheric circulation? No, Rook said. I mean the part of the system the Rasker forgot was boring. Lieutenant Owen Vance stood beside him, feeding old mining blueprints into a human slate. Their military deck is sealed, but the civilian lower levels still need fresh air. If they fully isolate the prison chambers, the prisoners die and become useless leverage. That means some system remains open. Marshal Orvek Drawl crossed his arms. You are basing an operation on air vents. Captain Mara Ivan did not look up from the patrol overlays. No, we are basing it on the enemy needing prisoners alive until the right moment, Sergeant Juno Park added, and on the fact that cruelty still has logistics. That line quieted the room for longer than anyone expected. Lyra then leaned over the table, watching Owen mark 3 tiny passages in pale blue. Those are service arteries, Owen nodded. Preoccupation maintenance routes, too narrow for most coalition assault units. Too unstable for drones because of mineral static. Too small to move prisoners through, but large enough for humans with light gear. Thalen studied the blue lines. We knew about those, Rook said. You knew they existed. You dismissed them because they could not carry an army. Can they carry 9 humans? Lyra asked. Not comfortably, Mara said. Comfort is not required. Orvek gave her a flat stare. And if the route collapses? Corporal Dane Holt, the demolitions expert, finally spoke. He had spent the last hour drawing structural stress marks on a separate layer. Then we die quietly and you never use that route again. Thalen looked at him. That is your assessment. Holt nodded. It is the honest one. The honesty unsettled the coalition more than confidence would have. They were used to officers promising victory in careful language. The humans spoke in risks. Rook placed 5 markers on the fortress schematic. We do not take the fortress. We create failure points. First, Owen delays command traffic so Karvik's orders arrive late or repeat. Second, Mara and Keller block reinforcement tunnels without collapsing civilian levels. Third, Holt prepares controlled seals here and here. Fourth, Juno reaches prisoner air control and prevents purge. Fifth, we isolate the true command layer. Thalen frowned. Our maps place the command layer here. He touched the upper military deck. Rook shook his head. That is the command layer they want you to attack. Orvek scoffed. And you know this after 1 day? No, Rook said. Lyra knew it and did not have permission to say it loudly enough. Every eye turned to Lyra. She stiffened, then slowly nodded. The Rasker response timing has always been wrong for that deck. Orders are coming from deeper. I suspected a hidden command chamber near the civilian pressure grid, but we had no way to confirm it. Rook looked back at Thalen. Now we do. The planning did not go smoothly after that. Juno objected to the first extraction timeline because it assumed prisoners could move at military speed. They have been starved for months, she said. Some will not walk. Some will panic when doors open. Some will refuse to believe rescue is real. Orvek muttered, then we cannot build the plan around weakness. Juno turned to him, and for the first time her comm cracked. They are prisoners, Marshal, not cargo delays. The room went still. Rook did not interrupt. Thalen watched the human medic point to the lower chambers. If your assault troops enter too fast, civilians will run toward weapons. If they enter too slow, Karvik regains control. We need med teams staged at the entry corridor before the first breach, not after. Thalen nodded. Done. Orvik looked irritated but said nothing. Holt then objected to one of Mara's proposed tunnel seals. That blast blocks reinforcement, yes, but it also shifts load above Chamber 8. Mara looked at the map. How much? Enough to crush the old water line. If that ruptures, lower prisoners drown before they poison. Mara exhaled. Move the charge 2 meters. Then enemy troops get an extra corridor. Better soldiers shooting at us than civilians dying behind us. Holt stared at her for half a second, then moved the mark. Agreed. By the end of the second day, the plan looked less like bravery and more like surgery. Thalen found that more frightening. Battles allowed noise, correction, reinforcements, anger. Surgery allowed none of that. One wrong cut and the patient died. He found Rook alone near the observation glass, watching Iliuminous-9 turn slowly beneath the station. Major, Thalen said. Why 9? Rook did not look away from the moon. Because 8 could not carry the redundancy. 10 increased detection risk in the second artery. That's simple. Most terrible things are simple after the counting is done. Thalen stood beside him. If you fail, Karvik kills the prisoners and broadcasts it. Yes, if we move too early, we kill them ourselves. Yes, if we wait too long, your team dies inside. Rook finally looked at him. Yes, Thalen's voice lowered. And you still call this a plan? Rook's answer was quiet. No, Commander, I call it the least bad door. The humans departed 3 hours before local nightfall. No speeches, no ceremony. Their transport did not fly toward Blackfall. It dropped them beyond a mineral storm line in broken terrain the Coalition had marked as useless. Thalen watched the tactical screen until the 9 human signals vanished by design. Orvik shifted beside him. We cannot track them, Lyra answered. That was their condition. Then how do we know they are alive? No one answered at first. Down on Iliuminous-9, Major Rook stood in a canyon of black ice and old mining stone as wind dragged dust across his visor. Ahead, somewhere under 20 kilometers of rock and hate, Blackvault anchor breath through forgotten pipes. Rook checked his team once, received 8 silent nods and keyed the short-range link. No heroics, he said. No noise. No dead civilians because we wanted to be fast. Mara's voice came back first. Understood, Juno followed. Understood. Holt tapped the first charge pack against his shoulder. Least bad door. Rook looked toward the dark fracture in the stone. We open it carefully. The fracture into Blackvault anchor was not a tunnel in any proper sense. It was a wound in the moon, a narrow split between old mining stone and Razgar reinforcement plates, half filled with frozen mineral dust and leaking heat from systems buried far below. Major Elias Rook entered first, shoulders turned sideways, one hand checking the rock, the other guiding his weight so the suit plates did not scrape. Behind him came Mara Ivan, Owen Vance, Juno Park, Dane Holt, and the others in a line so quiet the storm outside swallowed them before the moon could notice. For the first 30 minutes the plan worked exactly as the map promised, which made Rook distrust it. Perfect maps got people killed because they encouraged belief. Then the fracture ended. Not narrowed, not shifted, ended. A slab of collapsed alloy blocked the artery completely, sealed by old bombardment damage the Coalition records had missed. Holt touched the surface, read the stress pattern and whispered, no clean cut. If I open this, the upper seam drops. Mara looked back through the cramped dark. Alternate, Owen checked his slate. Waste heat bypass 40 meters lower, not on current maps. Juno's voice came low over the link. Toxic, Owen answered, probably. Rook did not curse. Probably is a route. Move. The bypass was worse. Heat rolled through it in slow waves, thick with chemical residue that made every breath taste metallic even through filters. The humans had to crawl for part of it, dragging packs under their chests while the rock pressed close above their backs. Halfway through, Nash's glove seal brushed a heated pipe and split. He hissed once sharply, then clamped his own wrist before anyone else reached him. Juno slid beside him in the dark and sealed the burn fast. Fingers, she whispered. Nash flexed them badly. Still mine? Not all of them for long if you do that again. Rook looked at the time marker. They had already lost 19 minutes. He wanted to move faster. He did not. Speed in tight spaces was another name for noise. Can you continue? He asked. Nash nodded. Yes, Juno said. He can continue. He cannot climb fast. Rook adjusted the order instantly. Keller takes his pack. Nash stays center. No one compensates by rushing. Mara's answer came first. Copy. That was why he trusted her. She understood that discipline was not moving fast. It was refusing to let fear set the pace. Inside Black Vault Anchor, Sub-Commander Neryl Vosk noticed the first wrong thing at 317 Fortress time. It was not an alarm. It was a food lift reporting 4 kilograms heavier on ascent than descent, then correcting itself before maintenance flagged it. Most officers would have ignored it. Neryl did not become security chief by ignoring small facts that behaved politely. He stood in the upper control annex, watching routine status flow across his display. Door pressure cycle in Artery 3 delayed by 2 seconds. Camera frost in waste heat bypass 12. Patrol beast refusing to enter a maintenance throat. Separately, each meant nothing. Together, they meant the fortress had begun lying to him. Lock down Artery 3, he ordered. His aide blinked. Sir, that artery is abandoned. Then no one will be inconvenienced. The aide obeyed. Neryl kept watching the display. And send a live patrol to waste heat 12. Not drones, soldiers. The aide hesitated. Coalition cannot fit soldiers through that route. Neryl's eyes narrowed. I did not say coalition. The humans heard the lockdown begin as a vibration through the walls. Owen stopped with one palm against a pipe. Manual shutters ahead. Someone noticed. Mara's eyes sharpened in the dark. How much noticed? Enough to close something old. Rook listened. The route ahead was still open, but not for long. Options, Holt said. I can jam the shutter half closed. Juno said. Half closed means Nash may not fit with the burn. Nash answered. I'll fit. Juno snapped. You will not make medical claims while your glove is melting. Rook cut in before pride wasted seconds. Holt jams it. Keller pushes Nash through. Owen, leave them a false pressure spike 2 junctions west. Owen was already moving. Make them think we turned away. Make them think something heavier did. 5 minutes later, a Rasker patrol arrived at waste heat 12 and found signs of movement leading toward a collapsed western pocket. They reported possible tunnel vermin or pressure damage. Neryl did not believe them, but he also did not yet know where to aim his suspicion. The first prisoners were not where coalition estimates placed them. They were lower, crowded into maintenance chambers converted into holding cells, hundreds of civilians packed under dim lights and bad air. Juno stopped at the grate above them, and for a moment her professional calm slipped. Children slept sitting up. Older prisoners leaned against walls, too weak to stand. One woman looked up at the grate as if she had heard something, but her eyes had the empty caution of someone who had learned hope was dangerous. Mara whispered, We cannot open this now. Juno's jaw tightened. I know. Rook heard the cost in her voice. We mark the chamber. We keep the air clean. We come back with the corridor. Some of them cannot walk, Juno said. Then your staging plan becomes the assault plan. He tagged the chamber on the silent map. We do not save them by dying above them. Juno looked at him. I hate that sentence. So do I. Then they moved. The first command relay sat behind a narrow service hatch guarded by 2 Rasker technicians and 1 armed soldier. The humans did not enter shooting. Owen watched the data cycle through a fiber probe while Mara counted the guards' turns. Rook waited until the soldier looked toward the wrong diagnostic light, then opened the hatch. 3 seconds later, the room was silent. Owen took the console and began changing timings, not cutting lines, not triggering alarms. Orders will still move, he whispered, but late, some repeat, some confirm before they arrive. Rook asked how long before they notice. Owen's fingers kept moving. A careless command staff, hours, a good one. Minutes. Elsewhere in Black Vault, Neryl watched 3 patrol orders confirmed twice with identical timestamps. He stood very still. There are intruders inside the fortress, he said. His aide went pale. How many? Neryl looked at the living map, at the tiny delays spreading like hairline cracks through stone. Not enough to attack us, he said. Enough to change what attack. Sub-Commander Neryl Vosk did not raise the fortress alarm. That was what made him dangerous. A worse officer would have panicked, sealed every door, and filled Black Vault Anchor with noise. Neryl did the opposite. He stood in the upper control annex with both hands resting on the edge of the console and watched the small delays spreading through the system. No general alarm, he said. His aide stared at him. Sir, if we shout, they know what we know. Quiet lockdown, service arteries first. Move live patrols in pairs. No drones, no automated routes. The aide swallowed. You believe they are in the old tunnels. I believe someone wants us to look everywhere except where they are. Neryl turned toward the fortress schematic. So we will look where the fortress is most ashamed. The aide did not understand. Neryl pointed to the lower civilian layers. There, if they came for conquest, they would go up. If they came to break us, they will go down. Major Elias Rook received the first sign of the hunt when a service door closed 3 seconds ahead of schedule. Not much, not loud, just enough. He held up one fist and the human line stopped. Owen Vance checked the feed through his wrist slate. They are narrowing routes, not sweeping. Someone smart is awake. Mara Ivan glanced down the tunnel. How smart? Owen answered, smart enough not to panic. Rook looked at Holt. Charges. Holt had one hand pressed to a structural seam. Primary seals are still possible. But if they lock this level first, we lose access to the eastern reinforcement tunnel. Juno Park's voice came in low from behind them. And prisoner air control is south, not east. That was the first cut the mission made into itself. They could not keep moving as one team anymore. Rook hated splitting. Splitting made every mistake lonelier. Mara, Holt, Keller take east. Block reinforcements without touching Chamber 8's water line. Owen, Juno, Nash with me. We go south. Mara nodded once. If east turns ugly, Rook said, make it quiet. She checked her weapon. Quiet is relative. On the Coalition command station, the tactical displays still showed almost nothing. That was becoming unbearable. Marshal Orvek paced behind Commander Thalen Voss like a storm given legs. We should move armor to the breach line now. Thalen did not look away from the moon. No, you are waiting on 9 ghosts. I am waiting on the only plan that does not begin with killing the prisoners. Orvek stepped closer. And if the humans are already dead, strategist Lyra Ven answered before Thalen could. Then the fortress would be loud. Orvek turned on her. That is your proof. Lyra pointed to the data stream. Enemy artillery paused 6 minutes ago. Internal command response is slowing. Their outer patrols are holding position instead of rotating. Something is happening inside and Karvek does not want us to know what. Thalen finally spoke. Major Rook said the window would look like confusion before it looked like success. Orvek muttered, it also looks like failure. Thalen's voice hardened. Most important things do while they are happening. Mara's team reached the eastern reinforcement tunnel 10 minutes late and found a Razgar patrol already inside it. 6 soldiers, heavy armor, wrong corridor for a clean fight. Holt whispered, if I place the seal here they see me. Mara watched the patrol spacing. Then they do not get to keep watching. Keller shifted beside her. Suppressed? Close. They moved when the patrol turned around a blind utility bend. The fight lasted less than 20 seconds and still felt too long. One Razgar managed a half shout before Keller drove him into the wall. Another fired once, the bolt burning across Holt's upper arm before Mara put him down. Holt hissed through his teeth but kept his charge pack steady. Still got the hand? Mara asked. Still got the hand. Then earn your specialist pay. He planted the charge 2 meters off the stress line, exactly where he had argued it needed to be. The controlled seal fired with a dull internal thump. Stone shifted. Metal folded. The reinforcement tunnel closed without shaking the prisoner chamber below. Mara exhaled once. East sealed. Rook's reply came faint through static. Good. Move to secondary. Rook's team had less luck. The southern path brought them above prisoner air control, but the access hatch opened into a chamber with 3 technicians and 2 guards standing over a purge console. Juno saw the symbols first and went cold. That is not normal air regulation. Owen scanned it. Poison cycle is armed but not released. Can you stop it? Rook asked. Owen stared at the exposed mechanics. From here, maybe. Quietly, no. A guard turned toward the hatch. The choice disappeared. Rook dropped first. The 2 guards died before the technicians understood the ceiling had opened. One technician reached for the purge lever. Juno shot him through the hand, then slammed him away from the console. No, she said, with more anger than volume. Owen was already at the controls. This is manual and local. They expected digital sabotage. Rook looked at Juno. Prisoner condition? She checked the lower feed. Her face tightened. Bad. We need med teams ready before the corridor opens. They will be. That was not hope, Major. That was an order. Rook nodded. Understood. Then Nerl found them. Not directly, but close enough. Emergency shutters dropped on both sides of the air control chamber, sealing Rook, Owen, Juno, and Nash inside. Nerl's voice came through the room speaker, calm and almost respectful. You are not Coalition. Rook looked at Owen, who silently held up 2 fingers, then pointed to the speaker trace. 2 relay hops, not enough to locate command. Rook answered, no. Nerl said, humans then. I wondered when your species would stop advising others and begin crawling through walls. Rook said nothing. Nerl continued, you are too late. General Karvik has authorized civilian purge if command integrity falls below threshold. Owen's eyes flicked up. Juno whispered, he is trying to rush us. Rook keyed the private link. Mara status, static. Then Mara's voice strained. Secondary contested. Holt wounded. Moving. Rook looked at the sealed doors, the armed poison system, and the hidden command layer now almost certainly below them. Nerl, he said into the speaker. "Tell your general something for me." "And what is that?" Rook's voice stayed even. "If he built his command room under prisoners, he should have built it deeper." Neryl's answer came after a pause, and the pause told Major Elias Rook more than the words did. "You do not know where command is." Rook looked at Owen Vance, who was still tracing the speaker line through the locked chamber's old relay paths. Owen held up one hand, then slowly folded 2 fingers down. "Almost there." Rook kept his voice flat. "You moved purge authority local, but you routed command verification through a lower pressure grid. That means Karvik is not above us. He is under the prisoner deck, using civilians as armor." The speaker stayed silent this time. Juno Park looked at the poison console and whispered, "Major." The purge timer had appeared. "Not active yet, but ready. 10 minutes. Maybe less if Karvik overrode it manually." Rook touched his comm. "All teams, command layer is below civilian pressure grid. Priority changes. Prisoner air stays alive. Reinforcement routes stay closed. We cut the throat now." Owen finally found the relay loop. "Neryl is 2 decks east, not command. He is hunting us from security control." Rook nodded. "Can you open this room?" Owen's fingers moved fast over the console. "Not open. Lie." The chamber lights flickered. A warning icon appeared on the sealed western door, reporting internal pressure failure. The door released 6 inches. Not enough for comfort, enough for humans. Nash went first despite his burned hand, forcing the gap wider with his shoulder while Juno shoved her kit through. Rook covered the room until the last second. On the speaker, Neryl's voice returned colder. "You are still inside my fortress." Rook slipped through the door and answered, "No, we are inside your timing." Mara Ivan's team was already paying for the secondary route. Holt moved with one arm locked against his ribs, blood darkening the side of his armor. Keller was limping. The Eastern Seal had worked, but the Rasker had pushed a reserve squad through a service stair that was not on any map. Mara dropped 2 smoke pins and led them into an old ore conveyor tunnel barely wide enough to breathe in. "Holt, can you still set the lower collapse?" Holt gave her a look. "If you ask me that again, I will become offended." "Good. Stay alive enough to complain later." They reached the structural rib above the second reinforcement artery. Holt placed the charge with shaking fingers, then stopped. "Problem." Mara's eyes narrowed. "How bad?" "Bad enough that honesty hurts. If I fire it full, we seal the route and crack the prisoner's ceiling. If you fire it low, we slow reinforcements, not stop them." Mara looked toward the distant sound of boots. "Then slow them. We will have to be faster somewhere else." Below the prisoner deck, Rook, Owen, Juno, and Nash found the truth of Blackvault Anchor. The hidden command layer was not grand. It was compact, armored, and ugly, built beneath the people Karvik had kept alive only because living shields were useful. Manual pulse towers carried orders upward through old industrial lines. If the humans had bombed from orbit, the prisoners would have died before command did. If the coalition had breached from above, every corridor would have become a killing floor. Rook saw it and understood why Karvik had survived so long. The fortress was not strong because it could not be touched. It was strong because touching it wrong killed everyone worth saving. Owen pointed to the pulse tower. "That sends purge confirmation." Juno pointed to the adjacent chamber. "That controls air release." Nash looked down the far hall. "And those are guards." 8 Rasker anchor troops moved into position, armor heavy, weapons up. Rook did not pretend this could stay quiet. "Owen tower, Juno air. Nash with me." The first exchange shattered the narrow corridor. Rook and Nash fought from behind an old support brace while Owen crawled under the pulse tower housing, tools in both hands, face lit by warning red. Juno crossed the chamber low, reached the air controls, and found a terrified prisoner engineer chained beside the system. Alive because Karvik needed someone who understood the old pipes. She cut his restraint. "Can you stop poison purge?" The engineer stared at her uniform. "Who are you?" Juno pressed a tool into his hand. "The person asking before everyone dies." Karvik Sorn entered with 4 elite guards just as the purge timer dropped under 3 minutes. He was taller than Rook expected, broad and calm, wearing no ceremonial armor, only command plating scarred by use. "9 humans," he said. "That is what they sent." Rook reloaded behind cover. "Enough." Karvik's mouth curled. "You cannot occupy this fortress." Rook looked at Owen, then at Juno and the prisoner engineer fighting the locked air system. "We did not come to occupy it." Karvik raised one hand. His guards advanced. The corridor became muzzle flashes and heat. Nash took a hit to the chest plate and slammed back, alive but stunned. Rook moved forward instead of back, cutting the angle before the guards could spread. Mara's voice burst through comms. "Lower collapse fired. Reinforcements slowed, not stopped, Rook answered. Then we finish before they arrive. Owen cut the pulse tower at 37 seconds, not dramatically, no explosion. He simply removed the fortress's ability to turn command into action. Juno and the prisoner engineer stopped the purge with 12 seconds left. Holt's weakened collapse bought the missing time. Mara's team hit Karvik's guards from the rear corridor, wounded but moving. Karvik turned, realizing too late that the humans had never needed to defeat every soldier. They had only needed to make every order arrive after its purpose had died. Rook reached him in the confusion. The fight was short, brutal, and close. Karvik was stronger. Rook was faster in the narrow space. When it ended, Karvik was on the floor, alive, disarmed, and cut off from every system he had trusted. Above them, the safe corridor marker finally turned green. On Coalition command, Lyra Ven saw it first. "Commander," she whispered. "The window is open." Thalen Voss stood. "Move the army." The Coalition army entered Black Vault Anchor expecting a battle and found something stranger than victory. The main corridor stood open, its defense doors locked in safe position, its weapon nests silent, its poison systems dead. Soldiers moved in slowly, rifles raised, helmets scanning every corner, but the fortress did not answer them. It breathed like a wounded machine, still alive, still dangerous, but no longer commanded by the mind that had made it untouchable. Commander Thalen Voss walked at the front with Marshal Orvik beside him and strategist Lyra Ven just behind, all three stepping through a passage their armies had failed to reach for 6 months. At first, no one spoke. Then they saw the prisoners. Hundreds at the lower gates, some standing, some carried, some blinking as if light itself had become suspicious. Coalition medics rushed forward, and Sergeant Juno Park was already there. Blood on her sleeve, shouting orders in a voice that made alien soldiers obey before they remembered she was not their officer. "Water first, breathing cases to the left, do not crowd the children. Anyone who can walk help someone who cannot." Thalen stopped beside her. "Sergeant Park." She did not look at him. "Commander, if you brought soldiers without medics, I will be personally disappointed." Thalen turned to Lyra. "Bring every medical unit we have." Lyra was already calling it in. Deeper inside, Major Elias Rook sat on a broken command step with one hand pressed against his ribs while Owen Vance finished securing the pulse tower. Mara Ivan leaned against a wall, one eye half closed from exhaustion, her weapon still pointed toward the corridor because trust was not part of the procedure yet. Holt was being treated by Juno's second medic, complaining quietly enough to prove he was alive. Nash sat nearby, burned hand wrapped, staring at the prisoner engineer who had helped stop the purge. The engineer had not stopped shaking since the timer ended. "It was at 12 seconds, he whispered. Owen looked up from the console. "Yes, 12 seconds. Yes, that is not enough time." Owen locked the final circuit and said, "It was the amount we had." The engineer stared at him, then gave a short broken laugh that became something like crying. Rook let him have it. Some people needed silence after survival. Others needed noise to prove it had happened. Thalen reached the hidden command layer 20 minutes later. He looked at Karvik Sorn, bound and guarded, sitting on the floor beneath the command platform he had used to hold a moon hostage. The Rasker warlord lifted his head when Thalen approached. "You did not beat this fortress," Karvik said. "They poisoned it from inside." Rook stood slowly before Thalen could answer. "No," he said, "you built it around prisoners. We removed the part that made them useful to you." Karvik smiled with blood on his teeth. "You think this ends the war?" Rook looked past him at the freed civilians moving through the corridor. "No. But it ends your version of it." Thalen stepped closer. "General Karvik Sorn, by authority of the Galactic Coalition, you are under arrest for civilian execution orders, unlawful fortress shielding, and command of occupied Iliuminous 9. Karvik laughed once. "You needed humans to say that." Orvik, who had been silent since entering, finally spoke. "Yes," he said, "we did." That admission moved through the officers like a quiet shock. Orvik did not look ashamed of it, but he looked older. Later, in the upper military deck, he found Rook watching prisoners pass through the safe corridor. "I called this madness," Orvik said. Rook did not turn. "You were not the only one. I thought scale was strength. Scale is useful. Not here, not here," Rook agreed. Orvik watched a coalition soldier lift a child into a medic sled. "If we had attacked again, we would have killed them." Rook's voice stayed low. "Yes," Orvik swallowed. "You sent 9 humans instead of an army." Rook looked at him then. "An army would have reached the wrong place first." For once, Orvik had no reply. By dawn, Black Vault Anchor still stood, but everything about it had changed. Its guns were silent. Its command chamber was captured. Its prisoners were outside under emergency shelters, wrapped in thermal blankets, drinking water from coalition cups. The coalition flag rose over the entrance, but there was no cheering. The soldiers were too tired, and the civilians had lost too much for noise to feel respectful. Thalen found Rook near the extraction ramp as the human team prepared to leave. "You should stay for the formal report," Thalen said. Rook glanced at his wounded team. "You have the fortress. The report can wait." Lyra stepped forward. "The war front is already shifting. Raskar anchors are withdrawing from 2 moons. 3 commanders are requesting negotiation channels." Mara gave a faint, humorless smile. "They learned walls do not make them unreachable." Thalen looked at the 9 humans, injured, filthy, ordinary in the worst and most frightening way. "How many teams like yours does Earth have?" Rook adjusted his pack and answered, "Enough to make people ask better questions before building prisons under fortresses." The transport lifted as Illuminous 9's sun broke over the ruined mining ridge. Below it, civilians walked out of the shadow of Blackvault Anchor through a corridor opened by 9 humans who had not come to conquer, celebrate, or be remembered. They had come because an army would have been too loud, too large, and too late. And across the coalition, a new doctrine began with one simple lesson. Before choosing the size of the response, understand